You're listening to Virtue of the West with me, Brittany Pettibone, and my co-host, Tara McCarthy.
Today we're talking with Lana Lochcheff. Lana is the host of the talk radio program 3 Radio 14 and the co-host of Red Ice Radio. She's also the founder of the organic and natural fiber clothing line, Lana's Llama. Thanks so much for joining us, Lana.
Well, thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
To start off, I was curious, how important do you think it is for young women to have role models? And do you think that there is a lack of right-wing role models right now for young right-wing women?
Yeah, it's funny because I never really cared about female role models. I never had one. I think it was because I was probably more independent, probably a little too independent. And I didn't come across many women that inspired me, unfortunately. I always ended up kind of being the girl that all my friends came to. But because of that, I had to learn things the hard way, So of course, role models are important. But I think something that is important is having good female friends that you can confide in and talk to you about girly things, stuff that isn't, for the boyfriend or the husband. And I think women don't consciously know when someone's their role model. Instead, it just is something that kind of subliminally affects them. They're like, oh, I enjoy listening to this girl, or I like the way she looks, or there's something about her presentation. And I think it kind of rubs off, And I don't mean this, I'm not saying this in a gay way, of course, but I think women are generally attracted to other women. They tend to respond to that, and they're not going to respond to women that are unattractive or don't carry themselves a certain way. So when it comes to women on the right, I have seen a lot of more attractive, appealing, smart women showing themselves, which is good. And because of that, I've seen a flood of a lot more younger, attractive, and smarter women coming in. And I think that girls like to watch other girls talk, kind of like they're kind of having girl time. And so I think shows like this is important for that. So that other, younger girls can see, hey, there's other girls that are more right wing, and I want to be a part of that. And I kind of feel like I'm a part of that conversation when I'm watching them talk. I also think that white women are longing for a group. We don't really have a sisterhood. Black girls have that. Mexican girls have that. Jewish girls have that. But do white girls really have a sisterhood? It's kind of been destroyed, right? So I think girls are longing for a group, and I think that we can offer them that. What do you guys think?
Yeah, well, I also think, to broaden, I think that anti-feminists are looking for a group. Because, everyone who bought into the feminism, you had all the celebrities and you could rally around that, and you felt like you were accepted by everyone who had a voice that was relevant and that had a lot of reach and power. So you had your group, and they would even start book clubs. I know like Emma Watson, who is one of the women who spearheaded feminism, she had like a book club on Goodreads that anyone could go join. And it was just very inclusive of, you felt like you belonged somewhere. But then as an someone who didn't subscribe to the current feminism views, which, I don't believe personally is even feminism, you kind of feel left out. Like for me, there wasn't really any girls that I could look up to. There were very few. Lauren Southern, I used to watch her before I came out, and talked about my political views, but there were very few that I found. I like Ann Coulter's another, and but it's just hard. There's not a lot. And so it is nice to create a kind of environment for women who are more right-wing or anti-feminist or whatever to find like-minded individuals.
I think too, speaking of the alt-right, it's kind of more fragmented. It's not really one singular kind of group. It attracts a lot of different kinds of people. So one thing I find with the girls on the alt-right, it's almost like there isn't certain girls that you look up to like a role model, but it's almost like you have this archetype that we've created of like the ideal woman of what we want to achieve or what we want to be like. And conversations like this is good to kind of hash it out. What is the ideal woman? What does it mean to be feminine in the year 2017, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you're right. And I think it's really vital that we do start setting a trend for whatever it is that we envision that to be, because the only alternative is this crazy radical left-wing stuff that you can see coming out of Hollywood. And I know Brittany knows about this because she writes for young adults in the young adult fiction genre, and they're I mean, it's just made up of people who are trying to indoctrinate young people, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I really want to redefine, at least have our definition of what a strong woman is be widely known, because we know what the feminist definition of a strong woman is, and to me, I don't regard that as true. You know, someone who just goes out and kicks ass or is that has to trample over men in order to feel legitimate. So I want to bring out a new definition of what is a strong woman, because there's far more to bravery and leadership and someone to look up to and aspire to be than that. So.
And it's challenging doing what we do. I talk about this all the time too, but to kind of let the female brain come out in politics. I mean, you know, it tends to be a masculine subject, but on the flip side, you have liberalism, which is like too much female brain. It's become it's mama hen all the time, and that's awful too. So there has to be a balance in politics.
Exactly.
And what is it that woke you up to what's going on in politics at the moment, or were you always aware from a young age?
No, I was actually, to date myself here, I grew up in the Northwest. I was more of a grunge puppy, you know, I did listen to Nirvana and all that. And then I did the goth thing. I was actually never a liberal. I didn't really care for politics. I called myself a libertarian, and then I was an anarchist, right? And was actually for quite a long time did a lot of shows on, you know, voluntarism and anti-statism. But Henrik and I, part of the work that we do is we analyze propaganda and news and entertainment and movies, and we were interested in conspiracy and secret societies and all that. But then when we came back into America, was it 2012, we started, you know, analyzing stuff going on. It was just blatantly anti-white. Mm-hmm. So that's initially what, like, oh, wow, it's just completely anti-white messages everywhere. So it got us actually on this trail. Then we started interviewing people on these subjects.
Yeah, I do. Did you see the recent Netflix trailer for the Dear White People? You know, what I notice about this is, you know, a lot of people will be like, oh, you know, black people are being racist or whatever, but a white person wrote that show. It seems that a lot of it is coming from white people, and they're inflicting it upon other white people. That's what I'm seeing. You know, it's the white liberals that just hate themselves and hate white people. So.
Or also, it's also mulattoes. There's a lot of mulattoes. I think they don't feel that they belong amongst whites. They don't belong amongst blacks. They're kind of in between, and they want everyone to be like them. And they have a lot of anger towards white people. You know, that's what I find anyway.
Yeah, some of the people in my family. I'm actually slightly mixed race. And
I can't talk to you. That's it.
It's done. It's done.
Yeah.
My grandma is half Indian, and
cool.
I see how it's like fractured her identity. And you know, in the way that when you have mixed ancestry, it's very difficult to I think it's just very difficult for them to see other people who don't have a fractured ethnic identity, because they have a kind of intimacy with their own people that is never going to be allowed for mixed race people. So something's been taken away from them, and that's extremely painful. And it's almost like this kind of victim perpetrator cycle that we see with criminals. Mm-hmm. Where something is done to them and they want it done to other people.
Yeah.
It's almost as though they want to inflict that on others because they can't have it, so why should other people?
Yeah, we do see that, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they want everyone to be like them, because then they'll feel better about themselves and belong to a group. And that's another painful aspect of mixing. I mean, people always fall in love. Of course, people are always going to race mix and fall in love. But what's happening now is we see a push for it. Like, it's the ideal, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want to be all white anymore. Like, you know, mix yourself out and do it for world peace, and we'll all be happier and get along. And that's actually, I mean, that's genocidal thinking. What if someone said that to Jews to mix themselves out, or Indians, or blacks? Wouldn't there be all hell in the world for that? I mean, the whole thing that we're talking about here, nationalism, why I became a nationalist is because I found too, it's the way to protect white people, to protect Black people, to protect Mexicans, to protect Indians. That is diversity. We all have to have our own separate territory. And it doesn't mean that we have to hate Indians and hate Blacks, but we just know that we need our own separate area to thrive, and people need to be able to be free to have their culture. Look at what's happening in America with multiculturalism. It's created more tension, more strife, more hatred. So just ask yourself, what has multiculturalism, has it made America a better place since the 50s or since the 30s? And the answer is no. And look around at countries that are homogenous. Japan, I mean, look, there's no crime. It does well. Sweden, before multiculturalism, it was homogenous. There was no crime. People got along. So, I mean, nationalism really is the answer for enabling peace. We need territories, right? We need our own separate territories.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's in particular actually with ideologies are what make it impossible to coexist. So, for example, Islam, with all the Muslims coming in now, their ideology is in stark conflict with ours and our culture. It's very difficult for them because they won't integrate. They're not going to assimilate. And so it's either we assimilate or they do, and neither side wants to, and we shouldn't have to. They should if they're coming to our country. But I think the main problem is ideologies, because that's what makes it, brings up the conflict. And that's why we have it with Muslims.
Yeah, and then you start to find, ideology actually is tied to different ethnic groups and race. I mean, this whole idea of multiculturalism and equality, and these are all ideas of European minds. You don't find these in other countries. So I think ideology and race is very connected. Muslims tend to be of Middle Eastern descent, right? So there is an ethnic tie. So, I mean, I go as far as saying, nationalism, ethno-nationalism, because, we're all different tribes and we all have different territories. And humanity is the story of, war and conquest and fighting over boundaries and territories. That's never, ever going to go away. And I think a lot of Muslims are currently in that period of they want to expand. They're in that conquest period. European people, we already went through that, but I think Muslims are just going through that. And of course, we should fight to keep that out. We've done it before in Europe. Took us a long time to fight them out before. We've had many wars with Islam in Europe before. So our ancestors would be, they're rolling over in their grave knowing that we're just giving the land back after how hard that they fought them off.
Yeah, and this idea about diversity, like you said, it's only a white thing. Like, white people are the only ones who will walk into a school and say this school is not diverse enough. You won't find a Kenyan won't walk into a Kenyan school and see a load of Kenyan children and say, this class is not diverse enough. They won't look on TV and say, our politicians aren't diverse enough, or, our newscast readers aren't diverse enough, because they're all Kenyan, So that's how they want it. Kenyans living in Kenya, serving Kenyans, working for Kenyans, with Kenyan lawmakers, and then you don't have all this crazy friction that's going on in areas where we try to promote diversity, as though it's a good thing, as though it's our strength, when the reality is it just creates a whole load of unnecessary friction and, identity politics and nonsense, really, that we have to put up with, that we wouldn't have to put up with if we didn't try to promote this extraordinarily unnatural experiment that we're doing in the name of some ideology called equality, which is, equality is about as achievable as fairness. It's an abstract idea that is unattainable.
And you're right. It's totally superficial. This isn't happening naturally, right? Mm-hmm. People aren't just naturally moving in with each other like this. The government is actually forcing and pushing these things, and now has diversity quotas. And this neighborhood is too white, right? Obama had that with Hood. They're actually looking at, racist zip codes and putting, Section 8 housing there because there's too many white people here. If you just let people do what they want, just let them live where they want want to live, you'll find that they end up grouping with people that are like them. There will be some people that want multiculturalism, and fine, go have that over here. But don't force me, or let's say a state, like a lot of people start moving to the Northwest, European people in America who are like, I don't want to be a part of that. I want to go over here and be with these people. They should just be allowed to have that. Freedom should mean letting people live with whoever they want to live, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, America is, I mean, it's going to be a different solution than what's happening for Europe. And I see America is probably going to break up into separate territories or a civil war at this rate. But why can't white people just live? Just live. Why do they have to have diversity, you know?
To kind of switch gears a bit, I'm curious. The U.S. has like an extremely high divorce rate. In your opinion, why do so many marriages not last? It's almost anticipated that they're going to end in divorce.
Yeah, it's so sad. I think that there's a lot of screwed up people emotionally and mentally, and they end up picking the wrong person. They're also very impatient, right? Some people feel pressured. Oh, I got to find them now, instead of waiting for the right person. And I also think you have to really know yourself and know your weaknesses and strengths before you go ahead and pick the person that you think is the right person for you. And, you know, sometimes it might happen later in life, but so be it if it's going to be a relationship that's going to be lasting. I think also in this kind of libtard society, adults act like spoiled children. They're selfish. They have ADD. They want to run away and blame other people all the time instead of trying to resolve their problems. Everything they want is it's supposed to feel good, no pain, no hardship. And the minute it gets tough, they run the other way, right? Or blame other people. I think that you can have it all. I mean, I found that. I didn't meet my husband until I was 30, you know, and excuse me, some people are like, oh, well, you know, you should get married younger. And I don't know. I think you have to meet the right person. It's got to be the right person. And when you meet that person, there's zero doubt, you know, right away. I know it sounds kind of cliche, but like, if you have any doubt, don't marry that person. I think that the best marriages are those who you can be lovers with, but also good friends and even business partners, and be aligned politically. If you can have all that, all the marriages I've seen that have lasted the longest, they have that kind of solid union.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in my opinion, this is from what I've seen, all the people around me whose marriages have lasted or who have divorced, it's usually they'll go into it for the reason that thinking, I'm going to be happy. I want, you know, to be happy. And that's the reason that they get married. But I think that's the complete wrong viewpoint, because the way I look at it is, and from what I've seen, it's when you get married, most of it is like sacrifice. You know, it's never always happy, and it's never going to be that. I think that you learn to love through sacrifice. And so that's how I've always had my vision of it. I'm when I go into it, I'm going to know it's not going to be easy. So, or just always happy.
Yeah, but, you have everyone has ups and downs, but if you're with the right person, it doesn't have to be all these ups and downs and actually hard sacrifice. I mean, I don't feel that I end up having to sacrifice much at all. I mean, I have a great marriage. We get along. We share a lot of the same views. We really have a partnership. So it's not like, oh my God, this is so hard for me. I have to give so much. I don't feel that at all, you know. It's about the right person, and the right person should also challenge you. I mean, I want my husband to challenge me on weak spots because I always want to improve. That's the idea, right? Always improve. But exactly. So we have to, you know, the right person, I think, can show you your strengths and your weaknesses. And I found as a woman, it really brought out my feminine side. I think you really learn that masculine, feminine dance, that balance once you're married and when you're really in the thick of it, you know. I mean, it changes you as a woman. I'm a total different woman now from before when I was married. So something does happen, even though it's like, oh, it's just a ring and you sign a paper. I don't know. It's almost like some kind of ritual magic thing that kind of happens. It does change everything.
Yeah.
So,
interesting.
What's your vision for the future of Red Ice, if you don't mind?
Sure. No, well, basically right now what we're doing is we're trying to look for new faces and voices. We want to expand Red Ice TV. That's really the goal here. And we want to have, a lot of diverse topics as long as they're from a pro-European perspective, right? So it could be anything. We just brought on a girl who does how-tos and cooking. Could be travel, art, history, children, spirituality, etc. We just want to do a lot more TV segments where we put in some of our little messages, because a lot of times you can watch a travel show or a nature show and they put in some kind of Marxist propaganda in that, right? So we want to be able to offer something else and also have a lot of humor segments. Conservative media is dying, so we need to pick up the slack, right? And I also, there's also some other alternative media where I feel like they're not really hitting it because they're not asking some of the other controversial things. So that's where we come in. We get called all kinds of things: Nazis, anti-Semites, white supremacists. But like, we don't care. We don't care. We're not afraid to question everything, go everywhere and interview everyone. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that we agree with everyone all the time, but we're asking questions. So certain things are off limits. We especially like to go into those areas and question, well, why is that one thing off limits? So we do want to do more segments, more mini documentaries, bring on more faces, more correspondents from around the world, and just really grow this network. And we're totally sponsored by our listeners through memberships and donations. So we have no ads, nothing. We're doing this all from scratch on our own. Mm-hmm. And we're actually looking, sorry, I just had to say this real fast. No, we're actually looking to hire a new video editor, animator, graphics guy. So if you're listening and you're that guy, come apply. We need you.
Awesome. Yeah, that's actually a great point that you made about interviewing people that you don't necessarily agree with on all points. Like, there are very few people who are going to come on this show where we agree with them 100%. I think it's rarely that you ever meet people you agree with 100%. But I think it is important to have, an array of viewpoints and opinions, and brought out, not just making an echo chamber, where everyone's just agreeing all the time. So yeah, I think that's great. And
we want to do more debates. I wanted to have on some girls, you guys would be good too, but like a feminist debate with some anti-feminists and feminists. I want to get some more heated debates going. The problem is it's hard to find leftists who are willing to come on Red Eyes. And they chicken out. They don't want to do it. I think it's because they know they're going to lose the argument.
Yeah, they don't care about truth at all. That's the thing. So that's right.
Well, I feel that at this point they know that their argument won't stand up to debate. It's all they have is name calling, bigots and Nazi and sexist and whatever. So that's all they have, though. That's as far as their argument goes. So it would be difficult for a debate. It
would be entertaining. Of course.
Yeah, and kind of on that note, there seems to be this current obsession with slogans like "the future is female." Do you think this makes it extra important for right-wing women to try and build platforms, where they can raise their voice against, these leftist
the future's
women and groups?
Female supremacists.
Yeah, I see it everywhere. The future is female.
Oh God, some kind of female domination. It's like the liberal politics is already very female. Yeah, I'm into a natural hierarchy, nature's hierarchy, right? Yeah, well, I think the number one most important thing, I'll get to that. Yes, I think it, but I think us having families is important, especially because lefties aren't procreating. So basically, our kids will be the future of our nations, which is a really good thing. But I think that we can simultaneously get our voice out there and do shows like this and be active online while you still have kids running around. I mean, we work at home. It works. You can have a family as a woman and do things online. And I think that we need more of that. We need to be more vocal because it attracts other women. And I noticed that the anti-white press, they're terrified of women like us. They never mention us. Anytime they mention the alt-right, for instance, they always make it sound like it's just a bunch of guys in the basements. They don't talk about how these guys have wives, and the wives are supportive, and the wives go to these meetups and conferences, and that they're there. So I think it's important for right-wing women to show themselves that actually we are here, you're wrong. I think it's good kind of to be spokeswomen for our movement and to kind of sell it a little bit. This is propaganda. So I think that it's good marketing, it's good propaganda, and the more of us that get together and do things like this and put out content, I think, yes, it can be highly impactful. So we do need to fight back. We can't just be quiet and not do anything or say anything. We have to call out a lot of this leftist absurdity from the women on the left, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they act like they represent all women, and they really don't. Like, most women don't support... Most white women in America voted for Trump, yet the media's spinning it as though we're all against Trump, and it's not true. You know, they're trying to use women against Trump, even though they're for Trump, you know?
No.
And women can get away with saying a lot more than the guys can, you know, because we can't hurt anyone. I'm 110 pounds. You know, I don't want to dominate. I don't want to dominate black people. You know what I mean? It's just like absurd. So I think that we can get away with saying a lot more than guys can.
Yeah.
Yeah, depending on the subject, sure. Yeah, I found that too.
How do you feel about the violence we're seeing from the left at the moment?
Well, that doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, they're commies, right? I mean, this is, after all, what they do. Communism has killed more people than any other ideology on the planet. And I knew that as soon as Trump got elected, we were going to see more leftist violence. And I think, what better way to wake up more people, right? To more people to support Trump. And I think it could be good because Trump might be able to do something about this kind of violence. He might be able to clamp down on some of these communist agitators he's been talking about it. So I would like to see, though, guys on our side better organize and defend themselves in these heated situations, because I've seen some of these pro-Trump people out there and alt-right people out there. I'm not saying they're going out there picking fights. They shouldn't do that, but they need to kind of watch their backs and be smarter about it. I mean, Richard Spencer, who's not a Nazi, far from it, like gets punched. You know, I mean, this is happening now in the streets. If people were just wearing Trump hats, just Trump hats, not even saying anything political, are getting beaten up and attacked. I mean, there's all kinds of awful footage. So we have to watch our backs. We have to be smart. The left is getting incredibly violent. So I think it's good that there's guys out there learning kind of self-defense and grouping up and having guys, you know, go out in packs if you're going to go out in some of these heated places or do some of these, interviews on the streets. Or once you're recognized, once you do a show like this, you get recognized by Antifa types, and they don't care if you're a woman. They'll come after you. So we need to start being wise, because these people are murderous. I mean, they come out with, you know, lead pipes now and shovels, and they'll bring an axe. So, I mean, they will kill people, and they're covering up their face when they do it. That should be outlawed too, so that we can identify some of these people. And I think Trump might start to go after some of these people.
Well, I really hope so. I mean, especially after UC Berkeley, that got way out of hand, way beyond. And we shouldn't, though, have to fear violence going to want to watch someone speak. It's absolutely ridiculous. But I hope that he clamps down hard, especially on Antifa, because it's getting to the point where they are threatening like rape and murder on us. So
they think, they'll think women like you are, they're fascists, right? So we can hang and rape fascists. I mean, when I started doing this all the time, I can't tell you how many death threats I got from those people. Like, we're going to hang you from the lamp. Yeah, right. Whatever, guy. But I mean, they are violent. These are the feelings that they harbor. They are, like, if you know about the Bolshevik Revolution, they mass murdered, 40 million Russians that were good quality people. I mean, these are American Bolsheviks rising again, and they are definitely violent. So we need to start thinking more in line with like protecting ourselves.
It's like a trend that got popular to call us fascists, Nazis. They don't even understand what they're calling us, like what that these accusations are. And so they'll just say, we can go kill them, we can punch them, hang them because they are, fascist, Nazi, whatever, fill in the blank. But yeah, they really don't even understand. And then all the people who just eat it up will say the same thing. I'm seeing like on Twitter now everywhere, people are like it's like this hero complex or something. They think they're Indiana Jones punching a Nazi. They think they're Captain America punching the Nazi. It's absolutely ridiculous. These people, they're deluded.
Yeah. Yeah, they're communists, and communists need to be stopped. And the only thing communists respond to in history is force. You know, unfortunately, not to go too deep into this, but unfortunately during World War II, America ended up siding with Russia and actually fought with communists. So problem one right there, you know, because now communism has won. Look around. I mean, it really has. Marxism has infected. So we're going to have to do a lot of cleanup work to take our countries back at this point.
Yeah. It was terrible in communist Russia. If you read some books about it, if you don't know, we're talking about how bad it was in communist Russia, how many people were mass murdered. Just read Solzhenitsyn, read Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He was in the Gulag himself. So that's who you can read. Read One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich or the Gulag Archipelago, which is quite long, but you'll hear it there, or Dostoevsky.
You're talking to a Russian.
House of the Dead. Yeah, House of the Dead. Yeah, but like for anyone who's listening, if you need to understand more, like read those books because they write all about it and they experienced it and it was horrible. So how much Russian are you? That's so cool. I'm a bit Russian too. I'm mostly cool. Czech though.
Oh, very nice. So Eastern European, both sides actually, both sides. I am almost entirely Eastern European, which didn't surprise me. I just did my DNA test, and then I had some Northwest, Finland area, and all Eastern European. Russians on both sides, they actually were true refugees. They came over in the 50s. They fled from the Bolsheviks and communism. They went and lived in China for a long time. My dad was actually born in China, so people ask, are you Chinese? If my dad's born in China, does that make me Chinese? So, and then they ended up coming over to San Francisco. They came over in the 50s. So,
so do you place much importance on traditionalism? And if so, what do you think is the most important aspect of traditionalism? Something we should help foster more in our current society?
Yeah, I didn't even know how much I value traditionalism till I was 30, until I met my husband and got into a marriage. You know, I think the word traditionalism makes people kind of think of Christian women in the kitchen all the time. I'm not a Christian. I'm no problem with Christians, but I'm not a Christian woman. There's a lot of women who are traditional, who aren't religious. And, you know, it's just basically they respect, how would I say, primordial traditionalism. It's how men and women, I think, have lived since the start of humanity. We have roles to play based on our biology, and it's really just self-evident, right? You know, like I said, I'm 110 pounds. I don't care about building things and picking up heavy things. I can't do it. And my husband doesn't care about, you know, floral decorations or interior decorations. I mean, this is just reality. You know, it's not social constructs. It's actually very embedded deep in our biology. But yes, traditionalism, very important. The most important aspect, I would say, is the family unit and the masculine-feminine relationship in balance. And that's something you learn as you go along when you're married and as you have a family. So I think you're the happiest once you have a family and you have a husband. And, you know, I got sucked into the feminist thinking quite, you know, my whole, like a lot of my 20s without even realizing it. It kind of sucked into me, and my mom too. I think she didn't even quite realize it herself. And you find that you're happier when you actually settle down and you have the right guy. It's a fulfillment that caught me off guard, actually.
Oh, awesome. Tara, you were a former liberal, and were you more feminist as well in the past, would you say?
You know, I don't know. It's hard to say because, I mean, there are so many different ideas about what feminist is, you know. Right. I guess I was taught at school that, like, before feminism, women were arrested on the street for walking alone and subjected to horrible, like, medical procedures and stuff. So that pretty much scared me into thinking that it was necessary for women to be able to vote and stuff. So yeah, it's kind of hard to say again, since I was brought up in like such a leftist area by leftist parents with leftist friends, etc., it was just very much, and leftist teachers, of course, it was just very much like, oh, this is just the norm. And a lot of times when I said things that I thought, people would just flip out at me and be like, you sound like a right-wing extremist, like you must have been reading like these right-wing rags, etc. And I'd never even, like, really spoken to any right-wing people or even, like, read any right-wing newspapers or anything. I was just exercising my common sense, you know, just like thinking using consistency. And yeah, so it's quite funny because looking back, it's like, it's almost as though I was like born right wing in a left wing area.
I think we all are as women. We're all born right wing, whatever. I mean, that's just the natural order of it. I think we all have that inside of ourselves. You know, I have some great girlfriends who are now, it's too late for them to have kids. They're married, but they got sucked into it, and beautiful, wonderful women, and they're on our page, and it's the biggest regret of their life. So that's very painful, you know, to be in that situation where you wake up to some of those things a little late, like, oh, that's the thing that's missing in my life. So you're young and you're listening and your mom didn't tell you to have kids, find a good guy.
Yeah, I know, it's funny. I notice a lot of people, like when I do interviews like this, you know, with like girls and stuff, they'll all be like, well, why aren't you going out and having all these, you know, babies if you're talking about it? And it's like, well, we have to like get married, like give me some time, you know. Exactly. But it's just funny because so many people say that, and it's like, well, when I'm married, like just give me time. I'm still young, but yeah, we will, of course. Well, and the other thing is engaged herself, so you
want to keep some things private too, you know, for the protection of your family as well when you have your name and face out there. But yeah, exactly. It's never too late. I'm not against. I don't think, oh, women's got to have, you know, this many kids by 25. I mean, that didn't happen for me. I mean, everyone's in a different place in their life and it happens differently. So as long as you have them, and great, you know, I don't care if you're 40 and you have a kid, then at least you have some, you know.
Also, I've been seeing comments from people saying things like, you know, you should get married when you're like 18 or 17 or something. And this is just not the case. Like, in Western Europe, you know, throughout all of our advanced stages of history, the average age of marriage for women was 23. So you should really start looking when you're like 21, and then by the time you're like 23 or 24, then you'll find someone, you know. And also, I really don't think that your brain is like fully developed enough to really, you know, you haven't really formed your own personal opinion. You haven't had a chance to be away from your parents and think about things for yourself enough until you're about 21 or so. So I'd say,
I agree fully. So, no, just it has to happen naturally. And a woman in her early 20s is much different than early 30s. So you need some maturity level. I actually think that it would be better if women start having kids at, you know, 25, because you're a little more mature at that time. You'll be a different kind of mother. So, don't listen.
I believe it's age 23 when your brain is fully developed. I think that's the age it is. But I mean, for me, I mean, if you want to get married at 18, get married at 18. I think it's
if you've really
meeting the right person. If you meet the right person, you know, get married at 28 or whatever, you know. But I don't think that. But the problem is they're encouraging women, like, wait till everyone, you know, just don't worry about it until, you know, after you're, you know, in your 30s, you know, early, late 30s. They encourage everyone to do this. Just don't worry about your 20s. That's way too young. You can't possibly do it. And that's not right. That's what, but I see, you know, interestingly, I don't really, I wouldn't have called myself a feminist, at least not in name, but kind of the way I was a couple years ago, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. I was way independent, like so independent. I think what drove me way back into my conservative, you know, more conservative or traditional values, which is how I was raised, was seeing the left for what it was. But that made me re-embrace it. But for a while there, like, I just would work all day, every day, and was really independent. So
like, I'm going to take care of myself. Different. No guy's going to take care of me, right? I want to see the world. I want to travel. Yeah. I mean.
Yeah, pretty much. It was similar, to that mentality, but it was more like, I'll just want to be a writer and I'll just, you know, be on my own. But I guess it was different because I have a twin, but.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing is, just because you get married or you're a traditional woman doesn't mean that you like stop reading and can't have a business or do other things on the side. That's ridiculous. You can do different things at different seasons of your life, and as long as you juggle it and prioritize, you can do all those things. It doesn't mean you're just chained to the kitchen cooking all day. That's not what it means.
Yeah, and the thing is though, because the schools are so leftist, I've decided to homeschool. Planning to have kids soon. I want to homeschool. So I am a little bit worried about that, because I think it is going to be quite time consuming homeschooling them all. So I think I'm definitely going to only be able to kind of do this kind of stuff like part-time, like not full-time, as I would like to, but you have to make some compromises, don't you? So
yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the homeschool thing, which is illegal in Sweden, by the way, if you can believe that. But homeschool networks, I've been talking to other mothers about this too. Like if we can have a lot of people in the same region, then we could pull together and hire a couple of teachers basically to help homeschool a group of, 20, 30 kids in the area. So it's almost like a private school.
That's such a good idea. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And then it takes the load off of you, and then you have a professional who's more on our page do the teaching for your kids.
Yeah, and it's not even that expensive to hire someone, really. I mean, for an hour, how much is it going to cost? Like $100 max, right? Yeah. For like, you could have like 10 different kids, and it's like $10 each per hour of tutoring. I was homeschooled for a little bit, and I loved it when I was young. And it was a Mennonite lady who came. She had the bun and everything. Someone had to come drop her off and everything. But yeah, I loved it. So there's options out there, because public school's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. All the marks.
I homeschooled as well. I loved it too.
Oh wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, for 2 years, my junior and senior, also 5th grade, but that was random. So I don't know why I just did the 1 year, but I loved junior and senior year homeschooling. That's when I started writing and everything. I loved it. But
and how did your parents manage? Was it like a full-time thing?
My mom is a superhero. Okay, there's 8 kids in my family, myself included. Wow. There's 8 children. And she managed to like homeschool everything. Yeah, she is a superhero.
Wow.
I don't know how she did. So I have a lot to live up to, you could say.
A lot of times kids that grow up in big families too, they don't want to have a lot of kids. It's the opposite, or some of them end up like not having any at all.
Oh, I'd love it. I would love to have kids. I used to not want to, just because I'm not, I was like, I couldn't imagine myself getting married, but I think I was just a very different person, way back when, in my teens, I guess you could say. But now if I meet the right person, I'd absolutely love to.
Yeah, so you know where to find Brittany, guys. Because people in the comments, they keep complaining like there are no right-wing women. Like, there's one right here. What are you talking about?
Oh, they are. Pretty much anytime I've interviewed a girl, and when I announce that she's single, she always meets a guy.
Moving on to another topic. Lana, what would you want the average Trump supporter? Say like there's the average Trump supporter listening right now. What would you tell them?
Well, if you guys, I know some people probably get tired of hearing me talk about race, but it's so important right now. So I want to tell Trump supporters, because I think they're getting more red-pilled and kind of on that edge where they can come over to our side now. It's happening. They're being primered. It's okay to embrace your white identity. It's okay to love white people and want to live with white people. It's not racist. You should love yourself, and you should love your people. And we should also tell them that through nationalism, we're actually preserving diversity. We need to really hammer that at home to get them to understand that globalism means making everyone the same, watering us all down. We're actually going to lose all our differences. That's why we should be, all of us across the world, different nationalists uniting to fight globalists. We need to do that. And also, it's morally wrong that we're being encouraged as white people that it's healthy to become a minority in the country that your ancestors built. That's garbage. And ignore claims of colonialism, racism, slavery, because all races are guilty of these things. So, drop all the guilt. I think that's going to be huge, massive. Just, you're not guilty. None of these things are your problem. It has nothing to do with you. So just don't even think about it. I think also, start becoming vocal. There's so many people on the right, and they're so quiet. The left is, they lost. Trump won. And it was, contrary to what they say, the majority actually voted for Trump. So we need to start being loud and show that we're the majority. Because right now it looks like the leftists are majority just because they're so loud out on the streets. And I think we need to become more vocal about Marxism, Marxist lies and manipulation. And then also for those that are super daring, I'd say pick up Kevin MacDonald's book, A Culture of Critique.
Yeah, actually, what you're saying just there just reminded me that, like, in the UK, I think in our parliament, the Speaker of the House actually banned Donald Trump from addressing the parliament.
Oh, yeah.
Even though polls show, and this is for the Muslim ban thing, the so-called Muslim ban, even though polls in the UK show that most British people support the idea of a Muslim ban. So our own parliament is not representative of our people.
Yes,
and nor is the media. So there's this huge disconnect between the elite, like the people who control the media, the people who control the government, and the actual people of the country. I mean, how has this come about? It's supposed to be a democracy.
Yeah. Well, and America was actually a republic, right? It was founded as a republic, not a democracy. That's just the truth of it. Yeah, and it's funny how lefties, they're always democracy. They bomb, they're happy like bombing other countries to bring them democracy. But now that democracy was in action here in America and Trump won, now they're like, oh, democracy, screaming and hating it. It's funny how that works, huh?
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's the thing. Yeah. I think there's a disconnect. You mentioned a disconnect between the people and, Parliament. Here in the U.S., there's a disconnect too, because no one expected Trump to win. All of these establishment people, they were completely shocked and blindsided by it. But it's because they're not in touch with the people and what the people want. And a lot of people say, oh, well, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. She very well may have, but then I know Trump is opening investigation to see like how many illegals did actually vote. So we need to still see that, and then we can see actually if she did in fact win the popular vote. So
I don't think so.
We can't tell yet.
I think you nailed it there with the illegals. I mean, because California, they can vote with the driver's license. Well, illegals get driver's license in California, and there's like millions of people right there. So it's the illegal popular vote.
And also, if the vote had been taken with the demographics that were there in the 1960s, when the US was like 90% white, it would have been a landslide. The only reason the Democrats in the US even stand a chance of winning an election is because they've spent the past 50 years importing voters. How is this going to work as a democracy?
Well, what's going to happen is this may be the last time we ever have a white president, white male president that's on the right, if this keeps up. And sadly, it seems like when you look at demographics already the people that are in here that are legal are breeding very faster than white people. So this may be it. This may be the last 4 years. I don't know, unless immigration is halted and some mass deportations of illegals happen.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Kind of on that note, like I know your husband, Henrik, is originally from Sweden and the two of you visit often. So how would you describe the changes that have taken place in Sweden as a result of the mass Islamic immigration?
Oh my gosh, it's catastrophic, even in the time that I've been up there. I don't know if you guys have been to Sweden, but it's true. A lot of, good-looking people up there, people that are more introverted, they're quiet, it's not a loud culture, they really kind of keep to themselves. Low crime, people really follow the rules. They're really into the rules there a little too much, so, But except if you come in and you're not Swedish and you're not white, then you can break all the rules possible and do whatever you want and get away with it in the government. Sweden, they're no war. They've always been neutral. They've been peaceful. The men have always been really respectful, almost too much so because of the feminists. Like guys don't even come up and ask you out because it might offend the girl, So it's polar opposite of these new people coming in. They're lazy bums. They're there's immigrant hoods now. There's no-go zones. It's all Islamic. Crime, rape, theft. I'm not making this stuff up. I mean, litter everywhere. It's loud. You walk the streets. A Swedish guy's not going to gawk at you on the street. Now you go there in certain areas and these Islamic guys will check you out. They'll scream at you. They say things. You've got Africans there too, not just all Muslims, but Africans. It's just destroying the place. And the welfare offices are packed because they have a very generous welfare system. So it's no brainer. They're going up there for the incentives, the payouts, and they get totally taken care of. Well, the tax rate is incredibly high. It's very expensive in Sweden. And if you own a business, the majority of it is going to go to the government. And now you have which
is really going to the immigrants, really.
It's going to the immigrants. I mean, they're cutting back old people's benefits to give more money to these incoming invaders. So people that worked and paid taxes their whole life, up to 70% tax rate for some people, are now not getting anything towards the end. So it's basically a nightmare. So if nationalists don't get in there and do something, or some I don't know, some of the men need to sort this out. It's got to be taken care of somehow. I mean, there has to be a coup, or something has to happen. There's a lot of feminists, a lot of female politicians. So if you want to see what it could look like with a female future in politics, just go to Sweden and you'll see how awful it is. I mean, rape's happening, but then they come down on Swedish for, they want them to sit down when they go pee. I mean, this is like, it's absurd. And homeschool is illegal, so they want your kids, they're going to force them to go to school with these other kids. But Muslims have their own schools. They're practically segregated. They can be just with their people and have their own Muslim teachers. I mean, it's just out of control. But the thing with Swedes is that they're very introverted, but they're quiet, and they take it. But then once they snap, it's just unstoppable. So I hope that that's going to be happening. But the government there is coming down on nationalist groups. They're Nazis, we have to shut them down. And they're really attacking hard on any kind of nationalism right now. So I think it might become civil war there at some point.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, none of this is news to me because I read alternative media, but you talk to, anytime I'll tweet an article that's like related to Sweden, that like a rape or something, or Germany too, with Angela Merkel saying that, she's not good for Germany. The leftists are like, are you insane? She's the greatest leader ever. Or Sweden is doing wonderfully. It's flourishing. They don't know what's going on. Maybe they have to go there and see it. But it's just our mainstream media it does not report objectively or anything remotely close to the truth of what is really going on. So it's quite a disservice.
Yeah, it's awful. And that's Northern Europe. I mean, that is like, it's always been very, very white people up there. It's cold, There's a lot of research. I don't buy the out of Africa theories, but that we came from the north. And there's a lot of ancient finds up there in Russia, and it's a sacred area, and it's important to me that it not be destroyed. And I know a lot of other people feel that way. I mean, they have to go back. That's how this is going to end. They have to go back. That's got to be, Europe is for Europeans. I know America is a different thing, but Europe must be for Europeans, and we have to fight hard and elect nationalists to get the lefties out of there and undo this damage. So basically, if you came in prior to this year, you have to go back. I mean, I'm gonna be really hard on that one, because this is the future of our people, right, Tara? You're in Europe,
Mm-hmm. Well, the question on that just to be asked is, why are Islamic countries not taking in the Muslims? The what is it, Saudi Arabia, that is taking none of the migrants, and they have to go all into the UK and Germany and France, etc. So why are they not taking any? Just ask a question there and no one will answer it. So
yeah, they're rich Gulf countries, and of course Israel doesn't either. Most countries aren't taking them in. We're basically getting the worst of some of these countries too, because a lot of the other rich Islamic countries, they know that some of these people are low end and trouble, so they won't even take those people, even though they're ethnically the same people.
Yeah. Well, I think they actually want them to invade Europe. I think that these Saudis, for example, I think they want Europe to be taken over by Muslims, because then it will become like an extension of the Muslim world for them. And I actually think that's their agenda. They want to take over the world. They literally want to take over the world. And this is how they're doing it. And they've been doing it for the past, thousands or so years, step by step, country by country. The whole of Northern Africa and a lot of Western Asia and all those kind of countries, they never used to be Muslim. This is a steady takeover that is going on progressively. And if we don't stop them from entering Europe, they'll take over Europe. That's what they want to
do. And we have to, yes, I agree with that. And the globalists are working with them because they want to destroy Europe. They actually hate white people. They want to get them out of the picture because white people actually oppose put up a fight against Marxism. There's a lot of other countries, I'm well-traveled, a lot of other countries, other races, they're okay with Marxism. They tend to want to go more in that direction when they're exposed to it. White people put up a fight to this stuff. We're the ones that are like, nope, we're going to fight you back and keep you out. I think there's an active war on to destroy European people, and they're using these so-called migrants and other immigrants to do so. And we can go really deep into that, but I'll just leave it there for now.
Yeah, we've come to the end of our show here, unfortunately. It's been so great though to have you. We're gonna have to have you again, Lana.
Sure.
Where's the best place for listeners to find out more about your work or future projects, etc.?
Sure, just go to redice.tv. That's where everything's happening. You can find everything from there.
All right, awesome.
Sorry. That's me forgetting my lines. Sorry.
You're good.
Thank you for listening to Virtual for West. If you'd like to support the running of this show, we both accept donations via our websites. Links are in the description, and you can find Brittany's award-winning book, Hatred Day, on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Audible.
And remember to check out Tara's other podcast, The Reality Call Show, for in-depth interviews with scientists, philosophers, and thought leaders. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you once again, Lana. It's been wonderful.
My pleasure.